Hello, everyone. It is good to be here with you tonight. Pardon, I just switch out my screens here. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Mueller. I'm the director and founder of cinéSPEAK. We are so thankful that you are here on this Sunday evening, Monday morning. We're very happy for you to be here. Welcome to all of our panelists who will be introduced shortly. For those of you tuning in, we want to let you know that this event is being recorded and broadcast live to Facebook on both the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival's website, Facebook page, and cinéSPEAK's. So we hope you can tune in there now or later. This event is proudly co-presented by the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival, the Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation, the Chinese American Families Wellness Initiative, the Alzheimer's Association, and the Temple University Center for Asian Health. We're so honored to be a co-presenter of this important event. Our Time Machine was a centerpiece feature at the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival in 2019. So we were delighted to join our film family at PAAFF to bring this film back to Philadelphia for its virtual theatrical release. We're honored to be co-hosting this conversation on the eve of our Time Machine's PBS premiere as part of the 33rd season of POV Docs. If you have not yet seen this film, you can support PAAFF, cinéSPEAK, and this film through October 18th by purchasing tickets via our website at cinespeak.org. And tomorrow, you can enjoy the film via the pbs.org. Starting tomorrow, it'll be on the live on PBS channels across the country on the East Coast. If you're in Philadelphia, you can watch it on WHYY at 10 p.m. or you can find out when it's playing at your local PBS station. And after tomorrow's broadcast, it'll be on the PBS app and the PBS website for 30 days. Throughout this event and towards the close, you are invited and highly encouraged to use the Q&A chat feature to ask any questions that you have about the themes explored in this conversation. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our incredible moderator tonight from Temple University's Center for Asian Health, Dr. Grace Ma. Welcome, Dr. Ma. Dr. Ma is a nationally recognized behavioral health scientist and leader in health disparities research. Dr. Ma is the Associate Dean for Health Disparities, the founding director for the Center of Asian Health, and the Laura H. Carnell Professor in Clinical Sciences at Temple University Medical School. Her community-based participatory research and patient-centered outcomes research focus on early detection, patient navigation, cancer prevention, and control, chronic diseases, smoking cessation, and access and quality of healthcare in underserved Asian Pacific American, African American, and other diverse health disparity populations. In 2000, so 20 years ago, Dr. Ma established Temple University Center for Asian Health as one of the first in the nations dedicated to reducing cancer and health disparities amongst underserved Asian Americans, and is funded by the National Institute for Health Cancer Institute. Dr. Ma, in partnership with community leaders, co-founded the first Asian Community Cancer Coalition and Cancer Health Disparity Network in the US Eastern region, including Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York City, Delaware, and DC, Maryland. Wow, you've done so much, and we're so honored to have you. Thank you for moderating this conversation. I will let you take it off from here. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and I really appreciate the introduction. Welcome all of you, good evening, and to our event, Memory and Aging in the Chinese Community. First, I would like to introduce our panelists, Esther Chen and Esther and Wan-Ling. Esther Chen is a filmmaker based in San Francisco and Taipei, and his new film, Our Time Machine, has presented to over 50 film festivals worldwide, winning 10 awards. He recently directed 2 episodes of the landmark 5-part PBS series, Asian Americans. His previous films include Emmy Award nominated A Village Called Lucia, Outrun, Mr. Tai Goes to Washington, To You, Sweetheart, Aloha. Leah has been a Sundance Time Warner Fellow and Rockwood Just Films Fellow and co-chair of New Day Films. He's the co-founder of ADOC, the Asian American Documentary Network, and a documentary branch member of the Academy. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Esther Castillo. Esther is a sociologist, an educator, and a community advocate. She is the project manager of the Chinese Immigrant Family Wellness Initiative, a partnership with the Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation. She had taught sociology courses at Temple, Drexel University, and University of Sciences in Philadelphia. And she was born and raised in Macau, China. She has extensive experiences in serving the immigrant communities, including teaching ESL classes, leading after-school programs, and engaging community outreach efforts. Welcome, Esther. And Wan-Ling is also our panelist, and those of you in Philadelphia are probably very familiar with her. And Wan-Ling is a certified dementia practitioner, care support program manager at the Alzheimer Disease Foundation in New York chapter. Wan-Ling was trained as a registered nurse in Taiwan and a nutritionist in the US. She has worked in nonprofit organizations for over 30 years to improve the quality of life of families facing chronic illnesses. Her current role is outreach representative, educator, and advocate at Alzheimer Association in New York chapter. Previously, she has worked here in Philadelphia at American Cancer Society. Welcome, Wan-Ling. So our today's conversation is on memory and aging in the Chinese community. As you know, American population continues to age, so do Asian Americans and Chinese Americans. So Alzheimer's disease is becoming a major healthcare challenge and concern. In the US alone, the number of people suffering from Alzheimer's disease will rise from 5.4 million to 15 million by 2050. So I hope you had a chance to watch the film or will watch the film, Our Time Machine. So this film directed by Leah is very timely in terms of increasing our awareness and taking action to prevent Alzheimer's disease, as well as provide care, support for members of our family and community who suffer from the disease. As you know, Alzheimer's disease is very much associated with risk factors that are actually preventable in the earlier part of our life. Aging is a natural process, and we can aging healthily, we can aging probably not healthily. So there are many ways that we can really living healthy, but at older age. Even our family members may have presented some signs of dementia or memory loss, but early intervention can actually help reverse the conditions even without medication, including early detection, healthy lifestyle of diet, physical activity, better social support, better mental health, or trauma injury or head injury prevention. There are many things we can do. So I'm very excited tonight for having this conversation among our panelists. First, I have, I guess the first question will go to Leah. And I wanted to ask, what motivated you to produce this film, Our Time Machine?
Thanks, Grace. And thanks again to Sarah and Selena for organizing this fantastic panel. And we're very excited about the broadcast tomorrow night on PBS POV. I think in Philly on WHYY, it's at 10 p.m. on 10 p.m. And New York, same thing too, NETs and at 10 p.m. So, you know, we initially were drawn to this story because of this really beautiful father-son relationship that we were witnessing. And also, you know, Ma Liang, who's our protagonist and an artist, and his work is just so visually stunning. We were very curious to both follow the production of the play itself, but at the same time, we wanted to also follow the story of the family as Ma Liang's father, his illness sort of continued to deteriorate, and we wanted to know how the family will cope with it. So that was our initial intention when we started following this story. We didn't really know where the story was going to lead us. We know that Alzheimer's and dementia as an illness is unpredictable. Sometimes the deterioration happens pretty quickly. Sometimes it's gradually, and it could take 4 years. We also were really interested in following the story, or telling the story from the caregiver's perspective. I think that most of us hear about caregiving for Alzheimer's, and we maybe intellectually understand what the struggle is, but to really be able to show what the visceral experience is like for the people who are living with people suffering this illness was something that was interesting to us, in terms of that we saw the need definitely for the community to understand that a little bit more deeply.
Thanks very much. I have a second question. I know this film, I have watched it. It's very touching. And I do have family members had the Alzheimer's disease, but I really wanted to really hear from you, what is the most important take-home message from the film? And yeah.
Well, I think that for me, I definitely I'm not any kinds of expert in terms of this illness. I think that I have anecdotal stories that I can share from observing this particular family, and also I've seen other films about Alzheimer's and read other stories in our research. I think for us, especially for the Chinese and Chinese American community, the experience of us kind of talking about it and addressing it as an illness that the whole family has to deal with is something that's relatively new. Mm-hmm. I know just from growing up and being around older folks in the Chinese, Taiwanese, and Chinese American community, that it's usually dismissed, as something that's kind of a little bit embarrassing, a little bit taboo, kind of, just sort of, you shut the old person at home and you don't really, deal with it, really, not in the emotional way. And I really would love for this story to start to, or to continue to help people to talk about it, to continue to help people build support, both for the individual suffering from the illness, but also for those who live with it, secondarily, who are caregivers, who are impacted in sort of really profound ways that a lot of people from our community are just beginning to talk about it now. So that's my biggest wish for people to walk away with.
Absolutely. I think this increasing the awareness in our community. Oftentimes there's a stigma about Alzheimer's and people denial to talk about it as dementia. And also, I think the film has introduced the patience. When the son found out his father actually went to the theater, but coming back to ask him, he said, "Was I there?" And so it's a disappointment, but also shows the patience of the son. And also, I think the film was very touching about the caregiving, as you said. The wife, the mother, has really burned out, but she is the only person there and the day in and day out to take care of the father. So I think this is really shows it's a disease, not only the person, it's the whole family. And yes.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. And I also know that, folks don't like to talk about this, and folks don't necessarily like to listen about this, right? They don't want to know about the statistics. They don't want to know about, you know, like what you should do something that's good for you. And for us, that's always the power of documentary. Is what we try to do is we try to connect with people first, right? We try to get people's attention by telling a really good story, regardless of you know, our audience's interest in learning about the disease or not. But once they are really invested in our characters, in the family, in our film, maybe they will then go out to, you know, learn more about the Alzheimer's disease and learn more about caregiving.
Absolutely. And at the beginning, I said this, we're here, it's because of this film. I think definitely this is a first step to increase the awareness in our community. Thank you very much for producing this film, and especially touched into our community, many family and life. Thank you. And I have questions for Wan-Ling. Wan-Ling, as you know, the Chinese Americans often encounter many access barriers to healthcare, and especially for elderly with limited English proficiency or don't speak English at all. So what are the lessons learned and the successful stories through your work at Alzheimer Association? Could you share some with us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a very common questions. Sometimes we often look at the materials. We need to have materials in Chinese for the person to understand, which is very important. But I want to highlight this film is making in China. There's no languages barriers at all. But you can see still, you know, come with a very heavy burdens from the family members and the caregivers. So I would like to share a few stories. One story is actually one mother and daughter came to United States. Mother came here for almost 10 years. She had Alzheimer's diagnosis 5 years ago. So daughter came to my education programs, which is my team create you know, particularly for the online education program for Chinese Mandarin. So she came to the class first time. And this is something like even we understand the language. We can speak the same language. And then she, you know, after the class, she came to me and then we had a talk. She said, my mother had this disease, which is Alzheimer's, right? But she also have a dementia. So she say, in Chinese is "痴呆" is like a little bit like an idiot or, you know, like a stupid. So immediately I corrected her. I say that was a long time we've been using that term. We want to respect anybody who encounter with this disease. So now we change to 失智, which is a loss of wisdom. So you can see language is so beautiful. You really have to understand, you know, how to communicate with your audience. So through the stories, I actually follow up with this mother and daughters. And daughter asked me one question, which is in Leo's film. Repetition. Mother is repeating all the time. Same thing again and then again and then again. So I actually consulting her. I also, under my role, I have a consultant role. So we talk about it. And this is something a lot of caregivers and family members couldn't put up with this repeating. But when I explained it to them, you know, inside the brain, which is the person with a disease, is really brain cell disease, you know, brain cell death disease gradually. You don't see people cut their fingers, you can see. So as soon as I talk to them, you know, educate them, I think most of the family members understood. Like, oh, okay. And next time I can be patient. I can really talk to my mom in a certain way. Not focusing about, you know, repeating like in this film, like, you know, he's repeating, I produce the 80, you know, programs. And again, even in China, I don't see healthcare providers are showing very patiently to this father, because it's repeating the same thing. So it's not a languages, you know, situation. I think it's also cultural and how much level of the understanding to each other. So the sad story is this mother passed away, wasn't through COVID-19 or Alzheimer's. She passed away, I think 3 weeks ago with a heart problems. But this is something daughter, we had another consultation, daughter said, I feel so guilty. I think I didn't take good care of my mom. I shouldn't scolding at her. I shouldn't really tell her, you know, things she has done wrong. So this is like, you know, in between the family members, you know, this is some kind of, not just a language part, is really the culture and then our backgrounds, you know, this is something from our traditional all the way from many, many years, you know. So this is something I think is very important to understand the language, but also you have to understand the culture as well. Also, I think I often tell them, don't really just go see a doctor. For example, we talk about the language. And this is Dr. Mom and I, when I used to work for the Cancer Society, we've been talking about this all the time. You know, we try to tell the people from the community, for example, Chinese communities, don't go to your appointment at the same day, say, oh, I don't understand what doctor's saying. You need a Chinese interpreters. You need to request ahead of time so the hospitals can provide that for you, but not on the same day. And this is the same thing to my Alzheimer's family members. They, you know, go to doctors, they didn't prepare the note. You have to write down the note. What do you want to ask? So very often they will call me back, say, hey, I just saw my doctor yesterday, but I didn't know this. I say, but you just saw your doctor. I'm afraid to talk to doctor. So this is a family members, you know, whose caregivers really taking care of their time to take care of your loved one, but they really didn't prepare. So I think languages is very important, but back to your question is, how important is that? You have to understand the system, health system. How do you navigate that? And then I say, on behalf of my Alzheimer's Association, don't work alone. Don't take care of your family and your loved one by yourself, reaching out. And I'm really impressed about Leo's film. Mother cried out, say, I cannot really take care of this anymore. And she was in the tears. And then I still remember, son say, I have 3 choices. Either I quit, I, you know, stay home with you guys, or you go to nursing home. But those 3 are really not the family, especially the children's decision, because that's not the best for them. But I'm really impressed about mom finally can really bring her husband to the nursing home together, living in another setting with a lot of people help them as a team, healthcare providers, social workers, nursing, you know, I don't know in China, do they have Alzheimer's Association, but this is a part of our whole society. We can't really work alone. We need other people like Dr. Mom also have a great team to reach out, you know, so this is something we all have to work together. And I just think, you know, this is tonight is a very special night, even combined with a film to really promote this, you know, not just the film itself, just promote the awareness is so important. So thank you so much. Thank you. This is a great question.
Thank you, Wan-Ling. This is really very important stories to share. We really need to break the ice to start the conversation. And I think this is just the first step. So the other topic, Wan-Ling, I want to also sort of ask you, as you know, Alzheimer's disease is developed over time, and oftentimes we can really prevent it. And now we're dealing with people already diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. But, you know, as an Alzheimer's Association, you have a lot of resources. You know, there are many risk factors are associated with Alzheimer's disease. Could be related to the diet, could be lack of sleep, or could be lack of physical activity, or could be early life. People had head injuries, or maybe had some trauma, or depression. And these things could be, actually recently we conduct a study among multi-ethnic groups, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Cambodian, and also African-American. We found the Vietnamese population elderly have the highest cognitive impairment. I think this could be related to their early life of refugee and Vietnamese War. So we're really back to study each person's and or this cohort, their early life. So the question is to you, and what are the preventable resources that are available? Could help our community to be more aware, even at earlier life. Even if people have earlier diagnosis with dementia, it still can reverse some of these conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for asking this very important question. If diagnosis as Alzheimer's disease is not reversible, so basically we'll go from earlier stage to middle stage to late stage. So those 3 stages normally is like in between 5 to 8 years. But everybody's, encounter with a disease differently. We have people call us after 10 years, 15 years, who diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So it's not really reversible. And so far, there's no medication to cure this disease. Most of the medication they use really just comfort their symptoms. So if they can remember, they can use the medication to help them to remember. And in Leo's film, I also remember that part, like he asked the doctor, say, can you give me some medication? And the doctor said, you're already taking that. Okay, so that's something. Medication is not cure this disease, but it's just maintain the symptoms. So that's something I would like to say. The most important risk factor is, you probably will be surprised, is aging. If you're getting older, you definitely is gonna get higher chances to get this disease. When the doctor diagnoses with a disease, say, hey, you have Alzheimer's, that doesn't mean you just starting today. It's already inside your brain, damage for a long time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So follow this story is also really interesting, because in the beginning, you can see it just from the earliest stage, just a little bit confused. In the middle stage, I think in the film, in the end, is probably closer to late stage, but it's not there yet. So you can see how much differences from the father. Used to can remember, do things, and then now is really unable to even remember he went to his son's show. So this is something most important, is the aging play a major part. So I love, Dr. Mom, you mentioned about healthy aging. That could be prevent, to stay with your high quality of life. So if you do encounter the diagnosis with, Alzheimer's, it may be, you can face this disease much better. Just like COVID-19, you have a better quality of life. You can really, probably get over this, COVID-19 much better than somebody who has a diabetics, heart problem, or cancer. Okay, so the number 2 actually is being a female. Surprisingly, being a female has a higher chances to get Alzheimer's, because why? Female tend to live longer than male. So researchers still study that. Maybe hormone, maybe the lifestyle, maybe inside the gene, there's certain thing which is a male and female is different. The third one is actually genetic. So I just pull a little bit data. There's one gene we call APOE4. And this gene is played a major part of how to carry this Alzheimer's disease. So for example, if your family member, like one side of family has Alzheimer's disease diagnosis, either aunt, uncle, or your father, let's say, then you have a higher chances than somebody who has both parents, relatives never have Alzheimer's disease. But that doesn't mean you definitely is not gonna get it. So this is really the high percentage. So for example, this APOE4 gene from white population, most likely 25% will carry this gene. But as an Asian, it's only 17 to 18%. So which is not as high as a white population. And I have to say this data is from United States. So it's not going globally, okay? So if you compare with the African American, actually in the United States is really high risk because they have twice chances to get Alzheimer's more than the Caucasian population. Hispanic has a 1.5 chances higher to get this disease. So I think it's very important to understand, you know, genetic, family history. However, I still want to come back to as a resources. So Alzheimer's Association, we provide this, and I will share the link to call our 800 numbers. We really don't want the caregivers to carry your loved one alone. My program is create a ton of different education program, social engagement program, you know, support groups. We have a consultation individually because of my language skills, so I can focus more Chinese family members. Before I came to Alzheimer's Association 2 years ago, we were relying on the 800 numbers to do the interpreters. So we can translate more than 200 languages, most likely. But you know, when you can talk to somebody in their own language, that's totally different. So I just want to say again, we have to work together as a team. We want our audience to be an advocate. You know, don't just stay home. You need to go out to talk to the legislators, say, hey, we really want more funding for research because right now there's no medication to cure this disease. So Alzheimer's Association put a lot of money into the research because we are also hoping we can find the cure for, you know, tomorrow or to our next generation. So this is a very important part. The last thing I want to say is the clinical trials. I think a lot of people don't like to be a guinea pig to join the clinical trials, but if we can really focus more on the research, and Dr. Mom, we always talk about this data. When people come to ask us that, okay, you provide a Caucasian, African American, and Latinos data, where's the Asian data? And probably you can tell us more why we don't have a lot of data from Asian community, because Asian don't really like to join the research. You know, any program is, you know, hesitate for them to join. So in that case, we don't really have a lot of data to prove that. So that's something like I want to emphasize. We want to work together, and this is such a wonderful event to combine with a film, art, you know, talking, understand the knowledge, and then I just think this is an excellent program, and I'm really fortunate to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wan-Ling. It is very important because in order to have a better understanding of the disease and participating in the clinical trials and research, this is really where our center is pushing every time, every disease possible to have enroll more Asian population. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure the drug is produced that works for Asians. And we really need to understand the precision medicine. It's not just the medicine that works for Caucasian will work for Asian. And I think Wan-Ling has really emphasized a good point of how we can use the network and existing resources to better cope with the disease if the family has members diagnosed. But I'm more optimistic. I like to see the prevention side. That's the sort of my my part of the job. I like to see prevention, early detection, early intervention. Definitely, there are research proving that if we have a healthy diet, and already it's proven the Mediterranean diet is much more healthier for preventing Alzheimer's disease, such as olive oil and physical activity. Just by walking, it will be reduce likelihood of getting Alzheimer's disease, despite the genetics and the other. So I think there are some optimistic end, so that we're promoting for a healthy lifestyle. But even there is an early signs, and we can still help to prevent to deteriorating. We can't stop its growing, but it can prevent slowing the deteriorating. Could have a healthy mental condition, especially now with the COVID, the isolation, depression are very much related to the risk of Alzheimer's disease, especially the elderly now. They used to be in the senior adult center, now they can't go. They're at home and they have fewer people to communicate with. So all these things are very much affecting the elderly aging life. Thanks very much, Wan-Ling. And Esther, and I have a question for you. And so as you know, the cultural beliefs are very much affecting our health and health-seeking behaviors. So are there any cultural beliefs about Alzheimer's disease that are common in the Chinese community? So if so, how these beliefs affecting their care for their family members and people who have already acquired Alzheimer's disease?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the organizers to have me here today. So talking about culture, yes, I think Leo talked about a little bit about the embarrassment, the taboo of older family members having Alzheimer's. And he also mentioned that in the past, like I've also heard stories about just older people just being left at home, and because people don't want to deal with it, people don't want to talk about it, we want to kind of pretend that this is not a problem. And and this is not just about Alzheimer's. I think in our cultural our cultural attitudes in general among Chinese families, we tend to adopt this really avoidant attitude to avoid things that are unpleasant, right? So that also goes for mental health, which is also linked, like what Dr. Ma said, which is also linked to Alzheimer's and the risks of having Alzheimer's later in life. So I would say that yes, the taboo, the stigma is definitely being a barrier to care. And also, I think there is a myth in the Chinese community that Alzheimer's is just a normal aging process, which is not true. But then when that happens, I think a lot of families would rationalize the process, saying that, oh, this is just normal. So I think the reaction would be to pretend that this is normal, that we don't have to do anything, that we don't have to deal with it until they really have to deal with it, right? And it also is linked to whether they plan for the patient later on when the disease progresses and when they really deteriorate. And I think it's also linked to this idea of filial piety in Chinese culture, that there is this strong belief that to be a good son and daughter, we have to take care of our parents when they get older. And with that, I think it is really stigmatized and taboo for older parents and older folks in general to go to a nursing home. And from a caregiver's perspectives and as a child of Chinese immigrants, there is still a lot of burden. I know I say that a lot, like, oh, we should destigmatize this, but just saying this from a daughter's point of view, I have my fear that one day if I have to put my mother in a nursing home, and I know objectively that should not be how I feel, like scientifically, that should not be how I feel. But then the cultural pressure is so much that it is seen that if as a daughter that I have to send my mother to a nursing home, then I am a failure, that I have failed my mother as a child, right? So I think that's definitely linked to the care. I think there's some differences between Chinese people in China and Taiwan and in Asia compared to in the United States. I do see that there is more intergenerational gaps between the generations in the United States, and in some families, such gaps also involve linguistic barriers. Some children are unable to communicate with their parents. So I think that is even harder in a lot of cases. So yeah, so thank you for your question.
Yeah, not only that, I think you're absolutely right. In our health system, oftentimes even nursing home, they're not equipped to take care of our parents because they do not have the staff who speak their language. Oftentimes, they could be felt in the nursing homes and the facilities. So there are a lot of barriers definitely facing that. A related question, this would be the last question, you know, as we mentioned a couple of times by Leah and the Wan-Ling, and I want to ask you that for, you know, caregiving is really a major challenge for any family with Alzheimer's disease patients. And as I remember, a family member had Alzheimer's disease. She has luckily lived for 5 years, but actually there is a full-time daughter quit job taking care of her for 5 years. I'm just imagining if she didn't do that, she probably could have passed. And basically she has to feed her, and there's a lot of really work and the burden on the family. So my question to you is, what are the some most important messages that you would recommend to the Chinese immigrant families regarding this caregiving?
Thank you for your question. This is a hard one. I think there's so many things our society can do, our community can do better to support these families. But just at the individual level, I think people need to know that what they're encountering is not they're not alone, that many other families are going through this. And I wish there are more support at the community level. And I'm sure, for example, like Wan-Ling, yeah, she said that Alzheimer's Associations is doing a lot to support these families. But even given like this efforts from people in the community, I feel like we still need a lot more support for these families. And I just listening to your story about what you just said about this daughter, and also some of the stories that I have heard, and also from the film, I also feel like this is kind of a gendered issues. I know that's not kind of your question, so I'm kind of going like sidetracked. But then I feel like a lot of the time, this kind of caretaking responsibilities fall on the women in the family. That usually is the daughter or the wife, you know, or the partner, and usually it becomes the women's job. And then so I'm just like also kind of find it interesting about, so that kind of ties into the cultural questions that you just talked about. Like we have like filial piety, but then also a lot of these responsibilities are expected from women, right? And kind of going back to your question, so what is the most important message? I think we do need to have a healthier society. There's no quick, easy way to get there. I think we all have to work very hard to think about how we can better support the patients and their families. And knowing that, for example, what I said, that the responsibilities fall really on women, we can question that. For example, like men in the families, maybe they can ask like what they can do, and women, we can support each other, and we can question some of these expectations, like some of these more traditional expectations that might not really work for us anymore, because this is like our society is changing. So should we, I wouldn't say to get rid of these traditional ideals, but like to really have a critical dialogue among ourselves about what aspect in our culture that we really want to preserve, and how we want to transform it so it better serves us. So yeah, that's my answer. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you very much. And I want
Dr. Ma, can I add something? As a caregivers, really the point is here. If somebody diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that doesn't mean they lose themselves. They may not remember something, but when I really talk and then do the education, we need to respect the people who, you know, diagnosis with this disease. And I often talk to the home health aides, you know, don't talk so loud to the person, and or like slow down your question, like, do you, they can understand you, they just cannot respond, you know, like what we can do is so quickly. So, you know, respect is something we really need to learn, even the daughter to mother, father to son. And I want to challenging, you know, Leo as our filmmaker. This film is excellent. I was trying to find something like I can suggest, you know, maybe something you can really change a little bit. There's nothing. It's just like, you know, doing so beautifully. You know, son was a very understanding, wanted father to be there. Doesn't matter father remember or not. And when father questioned, like, can you tell me more about, I went to this, and then he just like, okay, this is a story. And I had tears when he brought his daughter to show father. And then he said, I will just continue to tell my father, even he doesn't remember. I would just say it again. This is your daughter. This is your granddaughter. This is your granddaughter. This is your granddaughter. I was like so touched from that point. You know, as a caregivers, we don't recommend, you know, you feed your mother. Like this mother and daughter story, she told me, I don't want my mom mess up the dinner table, so I feed her. I use a spoon to feed my mom, and then, you know, she can eat it very quickly. There's no messing. But what we try to teach the family members is you can use your hand to help the person a little bit, feeding herself, but not take over the whole thing as a treatment, you know, as a care plan. So this is something I want to highlight. You know, they encounter with this terrible disease, but we should really still respect them. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Wan-Ling. I want to thank our panelists, Leah, Wan-Ling, and Esther, for the wonderful conversation. And I wanted to turn the podium to Sarah to see if the audience have any questions. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again. What a wonderful conversation. It's really great to be here with you all. I just want to invite the audience. You know, usually this would be the moment after a screening that we would get to like run around with the mic and get you to ask your burning questions and offer up your comments. So in this virtual world, we have the Q&A feature. If you have any questions, it would be great for you to, yeah, just let us know what you're thinking. And then Selena will close up in a moment. Maybe have any of those burning questions? Anything we learned tonight or want to add to the conversation?
If the audience don't have any question, I actually have a question for Leo.
Yeah, go for it.
So thank you for your film. It was so touching and it's so beautiful in a quiet way. And I want to ask you about how you were able to capture those emotions, because we just talked about how Chinese people don't like to express our emotions. Even when we cry, we want to, like, I don't know, hide in the room and cry. But then you were able to capture those like nuances, like those little tiny emotions in a big way. Yeah, how were you able to do that?
We spent, I think, altogether maybe almost 3 years with the family. And a lot of this credit goes to my co-director, Yang Sun, who's in Shanghai, who, you know, Mariang's father really treated him like a grandchild. So the parents are always really welcoming of him. And, you know, he basically would go over there and he would end up like sleeping on their couch. So really it's the trust and intimacy that we were able to build with the family. So we were able to kind of capture those moments. And we also ended up with, I don't know, 200-300 hours of material. So we were able to kind of go through it and find the, you know, find the moments that illustrates the emotions that we're interested in, you know, expressing. And, you know, again, I think, you know, through observing a family for such a long time, we knew what were the representative moments, right? That like, that happens over and over again. And we really kind of knew what the the reality was, sort of emotionally for each of the family members. For the mom, it's very different from for the son. We have only a little bit of the sister, but she also kind of went through a lot, and definitely the father, kind of seeing himself decline and sort of the helplessness of it all, and sort of the regret that he may have, or the resignation that he ultimately arrived at, all those things we really saw very clearly. We knew that we needed to kind of paint those pictures, for the audience. So, yeah, I mean, it's and I actually think it really helps because it's a family of performers. So the father, besides being a director, like any traditional, picking opera training, you start with very young as an apprentice, as a young actor. And the mom is actually for a long time was a well-known actress. She had this really famous TV role that even till this day people kind of come up and sort of ask her about it. So so that definitely helped, that they were really comfortable around a camera, and they were willing to kind of share their thoughts with us.
Thank you, Leo.
That's so
Sure.
great. We have a couple questions. These are both for Leo from the audience. I really do miss having my microphone running around frantically, having this funny little moment. So John from the audience, actually from PCDC, hello, is asking how and when during, oh, Selena, you want to answer the question? Or did you mark it? Oh, whoops, I lost, 1 second. I lost, let's have this Q&A feature. That's okay. How and when during Ma Liang's project did you get involved and decide to film this documentary? And you sort of answered this a little bit at the beginning, but would you speak to that?
Yeah, we got involved, not at the very beginning, but fairly early on. I think when we got involved, the play is still being workshopped, but a lot of the puppets have already, sort of gone pretty far along in terms of the design. So we didn't know how long we were going to follow them for. We had this idea that we were going to follow production, and given all the interest, international interest, maybe it would end up being a story about that in terms of the play being received by the international audience. And then we were just, going to see during this period what the relationship is within the family, and how that's going to change. But as most documentarians will tell you, it usually goes longer than you like, because once we went into the story much deeper, we felt like we needed to see certain things happen, and we're glad that we ended up waiting. We did the way that we did, because we did capture sort of a bit of a surprise for us that ended up to be kind of a beautiful ending to the film.
So great. Another question for Leo. I was from Joshua, who asks, I was wondering, as a filmmaker, how you approach interacting with the family both on screen and off, and how you approach the more emotional conversations without disturbing their privacy. Great question.
Well, I think if you can see in the film, we actually don't talk to the families very much, and a lot of the material we capture by being there, and by having them accept that we were going to be there, and to just continue to film their lives and their conversations. I mean, I don't think there's like a tip that we use necessarily to do things like that. It's just that's kind of our training, right? Like we understand how to be a part of a certain situation without being intrusive, and we also understand the relationship that needed to be built in order for that to happen. And we also understand the power of longitudinal storytelling, right? Sort of really, really sticking to it, not, I think that that's for me, that's a big difference between a documentary filmmaking, the way that we do it, versus, sort of more traditional news gathering, where it tends to be a sort of you come in and out, just talking to somebody and asking them, and then you leave like the day or in a week or whatever. Then we were there for years, right? Yeah, I mean, it's the intimacy is something that we're all really proud of, and for us, also being able to have access to Ma Liang's writing. You know, in the film, there are these moments where, you know, Ma Liang reads letters to his future child. And there actually came from a lot of his own writing. And like most artists, you know, he was very interested in the same subject matter over and over again. So he's interested in his childhood, he's interested in time memory, he's interested in father-son relationship. He does that in his writing anyway. So everything kind of came together, that we were able to construct all the different pieces into this story that gives this really inside look and intimate look to this family.
Thanks for that. This question is for Dr. Ma from Jay in the audience, who is asking, are there any links between Ayurveda and yoga to reducing the likelihood of Alzheimer's?
Well, that's to be studied. However, I think anything that really promoting both physical and emotional health, that definitely will also promote your mental health, which we call brain health. And I know there are studies already proven walking and is very much linked to the decline of the risk for Alzheimer's disease. So yoga was helping your mental tranquility and also calmness. I'm sure there are definitely benefits, but whether it's specifically have evidence or will be preventing or reducing the risk, that to be studied. But definitely, I think in general, it will promote the brain health. Thank you. Very good question.
Yeah, are there any burning questions or closing thoughts from our from the audience, or maybe between our amazing panelists before we close? Let's have a question. All right, for Ms. Hung and Ms. Castillo, how many people? Sorry, I read this wrong. How can people explain the? I'm going to mess this word up. Filial piety to their older parents, to bring them to nursing house if the materials, the familial, I guess, piety to their older parents to bring them to nursing house if the materials from the nursing house is not adequate. From the perspective of some elders, the nursing homes might just mean waiting to die.
Do you mind I answer first?
Go ahead first.
Yeah, actually, this is a lot of people asking this question. You know, should I bring my, you know, loved one to nursing home? During the COVID-19, I really don't recommend. Because if you really want to introduce this, first of all, you have to talk to the whole family, planning together, make the decision together. Secondly, you probably want to reach out to certain nursing home you think might be good for your, you know, family members. For example, if somebody's speaking Chinese, you want to look for certain nursing home who can communicate with your, you know, mom or your dad. I often suggest them to go visit. And right now, I think you can still do the virtual, you know, through online to see what is the setting in there. But the best really suggestion is, you know, just hold, wait after pandemic. But I still have a few family members say, you know, this is so critical because daughter lives in California and mom is here alone. So she really have to, you know, bring her mom to nursing home. This is something I want to ask Leo too, because this story is just so easy to convince. And I think one critical situation is mom also went with dad. That makes it so easy because most likely in New York, I mean, when I consulting people, I never hear anything like, oh, I'm going to go with my husband. And most likely will say, my husband will go to nursing home, you know? So this is so unique. I think because the location is in Shanghai, people are more open-minded, but something you probably can share. But I think nursing home is very important too, because you can really reduce the burden from the caregivers. if caregivers doesn't, have a good condition to help herself, she cannot really provide a high quality care to, the person who, encounter with this disease. Thank you. Esther?
Thank you, Wan-Ling. Just a little bit to add on, because Wan-Ling touched upon a lot of subject matters. I think one thing is to really recognize the danger and the risk factors of keeping the patient in their own home if there's no one designated person to take care of them, because there can be real dangers. For example, they can mix up the day and the night. They might try to cook something and turn the stove on and forget that they turn the stove on. They might go out and then forgot where they are. So there are actual real reasons why it might be better for the patients to go to a nursing home. And in terms of the nursing home itself, like what Wan-Ling said, actually my husband works in a nursing home in an Asian program. So then we talk about this subject a lot too. And it is something that needs to be improved, but then I think with these Asian programs, it helps to have these interpreters and some cultural programming, such as Chinese TV and newspapers, and sometimes they do like some Chinese arts and crafts. But I would say that overall we need more, because I think one of the scariest thing, like who the person who asked the question, what's the name? Let me check again. Sorry. Diane, right? Like what Diane said, that the fear is that there's nothing really to do there and people are just waiting to die. And it's such a sad way to look at it. But then on the other hand, I also think that these programs can improve in a way to add on, like what Dr. Ma said, the more spiritual and things that can really improve people's mental health, but not just taking care of the physical health of the patients in the nursing home.
Definitely.
I just want to add, to what Wan-Ling was saying, and also what Esther was saying. In terms of the Ma family, I think the mom was actually the one that's pushing for the for the couple to move into a nursing home. I think that a lot of that has to do again with this sort of stereotype, especially for the Chinese culture. I mean, I remember when I moved to the US, the two things that my parents always kind of half joked to me about was like, don't ever call us by our first name and don't ever send us to nursing homes, right? That it's like the biggest sin as a son. And I think that it's that stereotype of like, it's a miserable place, et cetera, et cetera. But for Ma Liang's parents, they're in the place where a lot of their friends are at. They have all these activities scheduled all day long. It's much more sophisticated now. In terms of some of these care facilities, the cost is actually another issue that needs to be discussed. But in terms of the care that a lot of these facilities provide, is definitely not the way that we were brought up to think what they are. So she really kind of pushed for that to happen, and I mean, she's an amazing woman, and she just really sort of took charge and understood how to, move this along. And another piece that's actually really interesting is for us, if people often ask us, like, what's the biggest difference between the international audience's reaction versus the Chinese, in China audience reaction to this? When we show this film to a lot of younger people in China, people actually were angry at Ma Liang for allowing the parents to move into the nursing home and not quitting his work to take care of his family, right? So there's still a lot of attitude adjustments, if you will, sort of a lot of more education and more discussion and more conversation that needs to happen within the families with the Chinese culture as a background.
I think this is a very important related to the reaction of the audience, international audience, and also the audience in the United States. A lot of nursing homes here do not have culturally, linguistically appropriate programs. And when the elderly go to nursing home, if they have a familiar culture and people speak the language and the food and everything, I think this would be more encouraging for the elderly to go to nursing home. And this is similar to our health system. Oftentimes we're being advocated for having more culturally linguistically appropriate program. I think this is something we need to fight for in order for not only have a healthier living environment, but also culturally linguistically appropriate environment, so that the elderly will be more encouraged to be there. Thanks for the comments.
I have a question for Leo. Do you have any plan for part 2 or any future film? Thank you.
No, we don't have any plan yet for a continuation of this. I think that work right now is for us to really get this film out there. You know, we are having our PBS broadcast tomorrow night, but at the same time, we are very interested in working with folks like you all to really, build a program around this film so it can be shared with our community, and it could go towards helping our community to gain a better understanding of this disease, and especially around the caregiving and the complexity of it. So that's kind of our immediate work around this film right now.
And can I ask one question for Selena? I really want to appreciate PAAFF joining this talk. Several years ago, when I'm actually volunteer for PAAFF for many years, but before I moved to New York, I really heavily involved a lot. And I remember the first question as a volunteer, I said, hey, you never have a health films related to our communities. And guess what? Is actually coming very often. We have a PAAFF spread the news with all kinds of, related to health, hepatitis B. And can you talk about this year? Do you have any film related to health? Thank you, Selena.
Thanks, Wan-Ling. Yeah, so Wan-Ling is a volunteer with Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival, has been for a number of years. Directly related to your question about this year's program, I can't actually tell you yet because we haven't announced our program, but we will be announcing our program on October 8th, and it'll be live streamed on our Facebook. But you're right. I think like what's great about our programs, especially in the last like 5, 6, 7 years, and what has been coming out from Asian American filmmakers is a lot of documentaries and narrative feature films that are really tackling issues that our community faces every day. And like you said, we have been featuring those films, Our Time Machine being one of them, which was our centerpiece films last year, to really start this conversation within Philadelphia, within our community, and to try to get people to understand that Asian American communities have a lot of things that we're fighting for currently. We're not just a model minority. We don't just, put our head down and just live our life. Like there are a lot of things that we struggle with. And I wanted to thank everyone on this panel, Leo, Wan-Ling, Esther, Grace, for being here and doing the work that you're doing, and having this discourse with us.
Thank you very much for saying that. I think this is very important nationally. I think Asian Americans oftentimes are neglected in terms of resources, and even now during the COVID, and the Asian Americans even being pushing out of this racial minority. So we're going to have to fight together for more resources to help our own community. Because if you look at the statistics, it's not showing that the Asian community needs help. So we have to do our own homework to make sure we have our presence and also fighting the disease that we are also suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. And hopefully, Leo, you get more funding, you can create more, great films related to health among Asian. That would be great.
And Asian Americans here in the United States will be a champion too.
If you guys have great stories, please bring it to us. I mean, I would love to find out more. So much of our work is the initial work is about the access, right? To find the right story with the right people to tell.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the panel and really wonderful discussion.
I'm going to pass it off to Selena. Hi, Selena, again. And take us away, close us out.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone. Thank you to Sarah for partnering with us on this film. And thank you, Leo and Wan-Ling and Esther and Dr. Ma for being here tonight. Just a reminder, if you want to watch Our Time Machine and you want to support Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival and cinéSPEAK, you can purchase a ticket to watch the film until October 18th. And you can purchase that on cinespeak.org. And also, you have another opportunity to watch the film tomorrow, which is the 28th, for Our Time Machine's PBS premiere. In Philadelphia, you can watch at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WHYY. You can also check pbs.org to see when you can watch it if you're tuning in from outside of Philadelphia. And it'll also be on pbs.org on the app for 1 month after tomorrow. I'm just trying to see, sorry. Let's see. Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival, we're gonna have our preview party. We're gonna announce our program for 2020 on October 8th. Our festival this year is gonna be occurring from November 5th to 15th. Tickets will go on sale on October 8th when we announce our program. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you're tuning in from Facebook, please click that like button. And on behalf of PAAFF and cinéSPEAK and all of our partners for tonight's talk, thank you so much for making space to gather with us this evening. We look forward to hosting you online and in person, hopefully very soon. But until next time, may you and yours be safe and well. Take care and good night.